The Andy Poland Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Poland Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Oh, yeah, we'll spend some time on the Masters today. We'll talk about the draft, of course, which is 10 days away. Jaden Daniels is doing Ashburn today. They are supposed to talk to Drake May sometime this week. J.J. McCarthy is on the radar. We'll obsess over the draft plenty in the next 10 days and mention it today. A lot of things to get to. Some baseball. Wizards wrapped up the season. I got a bizarre thought on who might be their next coach. And Andrew Luck talked on Friday, and we have really seen very little of him since that shocking retirement in August of 2019. And he's going to be 35 in September. Only 35. If he said, yeah, I kind of got an itch to play again, oh my God, teams would move heaven and earth. That's where we are at the quarterback position. And he's a guy who I'm sure players who look at him and go, God, how could he walk away at that? He was 29 years old. That's when guys used to start their careers. Oh, my. He left because of a calf injury. He'd been comeback player of the year before. It looked like the shoulder issues were behind him. How could he do it? And there was more than just football and more than just injuries behind it. And we'll get to that in the 10 o'clock hour. Before we get to Scottie Scheffler, and I guess he's the new Tiger, or the closest thing we've had to Tiger in a long, long time, as he is the dominant player in golf right now. I don't even want to say PGA Tour, because there's a lot of confusion now between the LIV and the PGA. He's on the PGA and just won his second Masters at the age of 27 and has not had a round under par since August. But that can wait. I did want to talk about this just to get the show going. I usually talk about this day in history, usually in the 10 o'clock hour, but there's just so much that happened today. This is such an historic day, April 15th. I thought I'd run down the list. Now, tax day, most people think, oh, when they created taxes, they made April 15th the day. Now, it had moved around some, and it has moved, like during the pandemic. There have been times when it's been delayed. But it's April 15th. It's today, and it started in 1955. Didn't start until 1955. So that was the first year that April 15th became the deadline. And, you know, you could take an extension. A lot of people do that. But this is the day that the taxes are due. As a matter of fact, Mark Cuban tweeted out yesterday that he's paying $280 million in a wire transfer to the IRS today. That may be related to the sale of the Mavericks that happened this year. So that tax money may be part of that. But he did it to kind of tweak Donald Trump. And just think, whatever checks you may be writing today or have written in the last few days, it's probably not $280 million. $280 million being turned over to the IRS today by Mark Cuban. But let's go back. 1865. On this day, Abraham Lincoln died. Yeah, most of this stuff is bad stuff. Lincoln had been shot the night before at Ford's Theater, lingered through the night, died on April 15th, 1865. 1878, this is a good thing, Ivory soap was introduced. I don't know how people clean themselves before then, but now you could get bars of Ivory soap to clean up. 1910, William Howard Taft became the first president to throw out the first ball at a baseball game. April 15th, it used to be opening day, and it was in 1910. And from the stands, you know, throwing out the first ball, the concept of that has changed as well. Going out to the mound and throwing the first pitch, as, you know, Bush did, Obama did. I guess Trump has never done it. I guess Biden hasn't done it, maybe too old to do it. I don't know. But that tradition of throwing out the first ball started from the stands, and Taft did it for the first time in 1910. More bad stuff. On this day in 1912, the Titanic sank. Good stuff. On this day in 1947, Jackie Robinson broke the color line for the Brooklyn Dodgers. 1955, Ray Kroc opened the first McDonald's in Illinois. He had bought the chain from the McDonald's brothers and kept the name and opened it up. And he was, if you don't know the story, it's a half-decent movie, actually, about how this McDonald's thing got off the ground, and he sold milkshake machines. And he got an order from the McDonald's brothers in California that they needed 6 of them. He's thinking, how could you need 6? And he visited the location and saw, oh, my God, look at that, and managed to buy McDonald's and open the first one in 1955. 1958, so that would have been 11 years after Jackie Robinson broke the color line. 1958, the Giants and the Dodgers had moved to San Francisco and Los Angeles. And on this day, they became the first major league teams to play a game in California as the Giants won 8-0. 1964, the Bay Bridge opened up. You used to have to take the ferry to go over to the beach. 1964, the Bay Bridge opened up. 1975, the first appearance by the San Diego Chicken. And you may not remember this, but the Chicken was originally a radio station-sponsored mascot, and it was known as the KGO Chicken, and that was the radio station in San Diego, KGO. So he was the KGO Chicken, and then when he wanted to go out on his own, Ted Giannoulis, I actually even saw him once without his chicken head on because he was very careful about not showing people what he looked like. But I was doing minor league baseball and got to see him without the chicken head on. But he went off on his own. There was a big lawsuit whether or not he could actually have the trademark rights to become the San Diego Chicken, and was able to win that in court. And in 1981, Janet Cook of the Washington Post revealed that her story about an 8-year-old heroin addict, which won her the Pulitzer Prize, was made up, and she had to give it back. All of that happening on April 15th. And what will happen today? I don't think there's anything historic scheduled, but you never know. The day is young, and we'll get to more things that are happening and have happened in sports coming up. Let's move to the Masters. I watched almost all of yesterday's final round, watched quite a bit between ESPN and CBS over the weekend, and Scottie Scheffler going in was the favorite. Scott Van Pelt said we hadn't seen a betting line on a favorite for the Masters since Tiger Woods in his prime, and he didn't disappoint. Hung around, and then finally saw others fold up beneath him and just par, couple of birdies in there, and finishes up with a 4-stroke win over Ludwig Åberg. It's spelled A-B-E-R-G, but that's Åberg. Others who were threatening, Tommy Fleetwood kind of made a little comeback at the end, finished 4 under par. Max Homa, who actually had the lead, I think, or was tied for the lead briefly yesterday, fell off, and he finished at 4 under. Colin Morikawa, who was playing with Scheffler, he finished at 4 under as well. So he is the face of golf right now. And when I look at him as the face of golf, I kind of yawn. You know, I'm a casual golf guy. I tried to play, didn't like it, stopped playing, like to watch it, especially when there's a charismatic figure. And when Tiger Woods was in his prime, there was nothing for me like watching Tiger on a Sunday wearing red, closing it out. He was one of the great closers in the history of sports, and if he had the lead, he wasn't coughing it up. And, you know, among his most famous shots was the chip on 16 in 2005, where the ball hung on the lip, and the famous Vern Lundquist call, "In Your Life." You know, Vern yesterday called his last Masters, 40 of them. He's retiring from broadcasting for good. And matter of fact, Tiger having to play yesterday early. He finished dead last. He did make the cut, set the record by making 24 straight cuts, but blew up on Saturday and finished last yesterday. But on 16, Vern was getting ready to broadcast the contending part of the Masters, not the contentious, but the contending part, so they didn't go on the air till 2 o'clock. So he's watching Tiger finish up in the morning, and Tiger comes over and shakes his hand. Well, somebody got a picture of just a hand extending from the tree. That was Vern behind the tree shaking Tiger's hand. And wouldn't you know it, somebody on the internet found a picture of Tiger's SUV crashed into the tree after that Thanksgiving night where Elin found his phone and all the contacts in it, and there was a big chase. He hit the fire hydrant and then smashed into a tree, and it was Tiger all these years later apologizing to the tree. That's not what happened. But, yeah, I missed that. I missed the Tiger dominance. But Scheffler right now is tearing it up. Again, he has not had a round under par since August. He has won 2 Masters before the age of 25, and it has had only 5 starts, which puts him in the company of people like Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods, and Seve Ballesteros. And he needed just 109 putts over the 72 holes. That was supposed to be the weakness of his game. That doesn't seem to be a problem anymore. And, the only question about him in this dominant stage of his career is, can it continue? Because post-Tiger, we have seen some of this. Since Tiger's dominance really ended the night of that incident, which was 2009. Yes, he did come back and win another major, winning the Masters in 2019. But by and large, that was the end of Tiger once he crashed the SUV. And we've seen people pop up like Jordan Spieth, who won 3 majors in an 11-major stretch between 2015 and 2017. He seems very ordinary now, missed the cut this week. Brooks Koepka won 4 from 2017 to 2019, then added the PGA Championship a year ago, but at 33, is Brooks Koepka a dominant player anymore? And then Rory McIlroy. And I remember being at Congressional when he won in 2011. He ran away with it. He sprinted from the start to the finish. It wasn't competitive at all. And that was his first. And he won 4 from 2011 to 2014. He was only 25 years old, but he hasn't done much since. He's 0 for 35 and just did make the cut, but I think he finished 4 over par, well out of contention yesterday. So can it last? We'll see. But right now, he's laser focused. He's getting it done, and he's showing absolutely no emotion. I texted Zabe yesterday to say, if AI created a golfer, it would look like Scottie Scheffler. It would behave like Scottie Scheffler. There's just nothing. I mean, I miss Tiger pumping his fists. I miss Tiger getting himself out of trouble with some amazing shots. We saw a couple of amazing shots from him over the weekend, but Scheffler just doesn't get himself in trouble very often. So there's really no trouble to get out of, and he'll just go on a par run, and it's winning golf, and he's dominant right now. Just not that exciting. So here was some of his not so exciting news conference yesterday after he won his second green jacket.
It's hard to put into words how special this is. It's been a long week, a grind of a week. The golf course was so challenging, and to be sitting here wearing this jacket again and getting to take it home is extremely special.
Great. Let's open up to questions. John.
Scottie, 2-part question. One, I see you've got some kinesiology tape on. I assume that's from your neck. And 2, how was this Sunday morning different than the Sunday morning 2 years ago?
Yeah, the Sunday morning was definitely different. Instead of just me and Mary at the house, I had a couple of my buddies with me, and we sat and relaxed. Tried not to think about golf, but it was increasingly difficult. But they were great support for me this morning. It was a long morning, but it was well worth it. I'm glad to be sitting here now.
Don.
Scottie, many congratulations. Your rivals will be hoping that at some point you're going to take your eye off the ball. By the time of the next major in a month's time, you'll have a baby in your arms. What are the chances that you think you will take your eye off the ball?
Well, I'm definitely not going to intentionally take my eye off the ball. I will go home, soak in this victory tonight. We'll definitely enjoy the birth of my first child. But with that being said, I still love competing. My priorities will change here very soon. My either son or daughter will now be the main priority along with my wife. So golf will now be, probably fourth in line. But I still love competing. I don't plan on taking my eye off the ball anytime soon, that's for sure.
And he doesn't seem to plan on letting us inside of who he is very much. I guess he said, hanging out with his close friends yesterday morning. But we don't know this guy. We didn't really know Tiger either, but he was so intriguing. There was so much interest in him. And right now you have as vanilla a competitor as you'll ever see, and that's part of the plan there. He was getting compliments left and right when I was watching the coverage. Oh, yeah, never shows emotion. Great guy, though. How do you know? He doesn't let you see any dark side of him, and, does all the right things, says all the right things, very concerned about getting home to his wife who's pregnant, said that he would have left had he gotten a phone call that she had gone into labor. I take him at his word. Phil Mickelson had said the same in the past. It's his first child. He says you only have an opportunity to see your first child once. Obviously doesn't know. My daughter didn't want to know either. But I guess his wife and he don't want to know either. So he'll find out in the next few weeks whether he's got a son or a daughter. But he's now got 2 jackets, and he's the best thing going in golf right now in a sport that's in kind of a confused state with the LIV Tour and the PGA Tour, and is there going to be a merger? Will there not be a merger? We're not seeing the best players compete week to week except in the majors. So it is becoming a 4-time-a-year sport. I imagine the ratings will be good, especially with Tiger playing into the weekend. But this sport needs some pizzazz right now. We saw what Caitlin Clark did for women's basketball. We saw what Tiger did 25 years ago for golf, and now it's fine. They're making a lot of money. I think he pockets like $3 million for winning yesterday. But the reality is the sport is kind of right now, and it's represented by a guy who's kind of right. I mean, that's where it is. And if you like golf, and who doesn't like on a gorgeous day like yesterday watching them play down the backstretch at Augusta with Scheffler pulling away? Dominance is fun to watch, but it's not a sport right now where the mainstream can latch on the way they did with women's basketball and Caitlin Clark. And speaking of her, later this hour, we'll hear her appearance on Saturday Night Live over the weekend, which was spectacular. She knocked it out of the park when she appeared on Weekend Update. We'll get to that. But Orioles rolling along. They won yesterday, 96 straight series without being swept. That's a major league record. And Jackson Holliday finally had his first hit. So he's got that not to worry about anymore as they move on to start a series with Minnesota tonight. Coming up, more from Scottie Scheffler, and also what Andrew Luck has said about his leaving the NFL at the age of 29 and whether or not he looked back. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. All right, a little rain early this morning, but looks like blue skies out there, which is nice. Yeah, it's supposed to be in the 80s today. It's supposed to be in the 70s throughout the week. Back down to the 60s this upcoming weekend. Pretty crazy, but we'll deal with it, right? Spent some time getting the deck ready yesterday. Spring is fully on, and we're rolling towards the summer. Tony's got a show today coming up at 11 o'clock. I assume that he's going to spend a good deal of it on the Masters, which was won by Scottie Scheffler yesterday. I'm a very, very casual golf fan, but watched most of yesterday's final round as there really wasn't much drama on the back nine as others fell away from him, and he was able to stay steady. He's just a machine. Shows no emotion out on the course. Is he good for golf? Yeah, I guess. I think a dominant player, no matter what his personality is good. It gives people someone to identify with. It's just that he seems to be tough to identify with. Because there doesn't seem to be much real depth of personality there. Whereas Tiger, even before all the things that happened to him, the downfall and all that, there was a lot of interesting levels to him, and he was the talk of not just golf but sports. He was everywhere, and the fact that he was a minority was huge. As a matter of fact, I was talking about this yesterday with Zabe on the podcast we do every week. That when Tiger came along, the feeling was, okay, this is really going to open up the doors. It's kind of ironic. We're talking about this on the anniversary of Jackie Robinson breaking the color line in 1947. And Tiger, when he won the Masters in 1997, so 30 years later, he was being considered the trailblazer for that. Not that blacks were banned from golf, though they were actually years before. But, he was one who broke through, and he was going to show the way for minorities that this was going to be possible for them. And there were all these clinics that were done in the inner city and so forth. And they said, you watch, 10, 15 years, you're going to see a wave of minority golfers coming along. And if you watched the Masters yesterday, it was lookalikes. It was mostly guys in their mid-20s with flat bellies and all white. Yeah, there were a couple of foreign players in the mix, but by and large, these were guys in their 20s who are white, who grew up in a setting where there was resources to give them private lessons. Like when Scottie Scheffler came off after winning yesterday, he hugged his parents, and he hugged the coach he'd had since he was 7 years old. There aren't many people who can afford to have a private coach teach them golf. And also, when you're a kid, golf is hard. You got to work hard and practice hard all the time. And it's lonely. You got to be out there hitting balls by yourself a lot. You're not out there playing with your friends, playing pickup basketball or playing AAU or playing in these 7-on-7 leagues that they have for football, or even working out as a team, working in the weight room together. It's not like that. And so it just has not produced in the way that we thought it would, with the way they said it would. And you don't blame Tiger for that. It just showed you and has shown us just how unusual it was for someone to emerge like this. And it was kind of the perfect storm there. He had great talent. B, he really liked it. And C, he had a father who was retired who took him to the golf course every afternoon. And most kids don't have that. Their dads are at work. They don't have the in this case, the luxury of someone to teach him the game and work with him every single day like he did. And Earl worked hard to make this kid good, and he was, and he embraced it, and he loved the grind. And that's why he stayed on top so long, is because he did embrace the grind. But in the end, that caught up with him too, in that, it's not a balanced life. And excuse me, by the time he reached his 30s, there were issues that got the best of him. Excuse me. This is last night, as was wrapped up with Scheffler with 11 under par, winning by 4, and Scott Van Pelt and Andy North anchoring the coverage on ESPN, picking up some of the comments that he made, Scottie Scheffler made after winning, and their analysis of what they saw unfold yesterday afternoon.
I will go home, soak in this victory tonight. We'll definitely enjoy the birth of my first child, but with that being said, I still love competing. My priorities will change here very soon. My either son or daughter will now be the main priority along with my wife. So golf will now be, probably fourth in line. But I still love competing. I don't plan on taking my eye off the ball anytime soon, that's for sure.
The first for Scheffler is God. He said he does all this with glory to God, and he's playing like a golfing god, if you will, and obviously his family right there behind then golf. In terms of his golf at the moment, Andy, what most impresses you about Scottie Scheffler?
Well, we talk all the time about he's such a great ball striker. He's number one in greens hit and regulation on tour. He's number one in shots gained tee to green, all that. I think the most important thing about Scottie Scheffler, he knows who he is, and he owns it, and that's who he is, and he never changes, and I think that's why he's so strong.
It's interesting. It's just a total lack of being impressed with any of this. And when I knew when he came into the Butler cabin Thursday, I said, I'm not even going to ask you about Sunday because he's going to be present in that moment. And I think that's instructive for all of us. But it seems incredibly difficult to maintain that perspective. I don't think that will happen to this man.
Well, I think the biggest thing with it, he's not involved with social media. Yeah. He didn't have a real phone until a year ago. He had a flip phone until a year or so ago. And the only reason he has it now is so he can look at the score. So I love the fact how he goes about his business. I think the big question we need to know, will the baby's room be blue, pink, or maybe a little green?
Maybe a little green to go with whatever other color. But I think this is a conversation we had off air. A lot of times players reach a point where they think they need to try to get better. They search for something. This guy's not searching for anything.
No, he's rolling, and the only issue I would have as a casual fan is there's not a lot of sizzle there. It is greatness, 2 green jackets by the time you're 27. Fact that he and his wife don't know the sex of the baby, that's a little unusual these days, but that was the case for my daughter as well. They're going to find out within the next few weeks. But he's bland on purpose. I don't know. But there's nothing there that you can really attach yourself to other than he seems like a mensch. He doesn't reveal much about himself other than he's a family man and his priorities are going to be with his family and God, as he says. But that's about it. But, he was most casual fans may have heard the name, but they don't know much about him, can't really picture him in their mind's eye. But when Scott Van Pelt said going into the tournament the past week that the betting odds were similar to what Tiger was getting in his prime, he said, really, this guy? Yeah. But he proved it, and he was just rattle-proof the entire 4 days, and particularly yesterday when he could have gotten off track and didn't, and the others did around him, and he wound up winning by 4 shots. Yeah, he had trouble putting out to win the last time. I think it took him 4 putts to win with his big lead, and he won by 1. But yesterday, no problem, knocked in the putt for par and won by 4 shots. So Scottie Scheffler, he's around for now. I guess it's is it the PGA that coming up next or U.S.? It's next month that. I guess it's the PGA next month because they used to play that at the end of the year. So that's next month. And then in July will be the U.S. Open. All right. I got a stadium story here from the Post over the weekend where, we're now out of the danger zone with Ted. He's staying in D.C. What it means for the Commanders, whether or not they go to D.C., we don't know. Maryland may still be in the mix. Maybe there's a slight chance it winds up in Virginia, but there's going to be a stadium. And this is a story that was done by Alyssa Fowers and Andrew Van Dam. It says, America is set to hit a boom in sports stadiums and arenas. Some numbers here. Only 6 major sports facilities opened in North America from 2020 to 2024, including the $1.15 billion renovation of Seattle's Kraken Climate Pledge. That's a long name. Kraken Climate Pledge Arena. The one case of an overhaul so completely we counted it as a new facility. It is perhaps the steepest stadium slump we've seen since the baby boom. You wouldn't think that. 6 new facilities seems like a lot over a 4-year period, but it's slowed down. They called economist J.C. Bradbury, who helped build a database of 220 major sports facilities constructed in North America since 1909, updating the data that Judith Grant Long gathered for her 2014 book. Billionaire owners aren't always forthcoming, so often the base of their work on ballpark estimates come from press accounts and other sources. Yeah, nobody's going to tell you how much exactly they're spending. There's the data from Kennesaw State University outlined 2 great waves of sports construction. The first hit in the 1960s as television brought sports to the masses. Revenue rose and newly expansionist leagues sprawled across the country. The first super stadiums were cavernous concrete buckets meant to be filled with multiple sports and events. The Astrodome, RFK Stadium, I think the Vet was built at the same time. Many were built with public funds and envisioned as public resources. Yeah, hey, we're going to build you a new stadium. Now teams want stadiums built for them. In those days, they were looking at teams as a way of getting more tax revenue and so forth around the stadium. The second wave hit in the late 1990s. An incredible 56 facilities rose from 1995 to 2004 as owners realized they could tap into fresh fire hydrants of money by swapping their generic sports buckets, most still perfectly functional, for revenues tailored to specific sports and larded with restaurants, clubs, and luxury suites. That doesn't include Camden Yards, which was built in 92, which really, I think, set in motion all these stadiums that have been built. The cost to build those sports spaces more than doubled during that second surge of construction, even after adjusting for inflation, from a median of $190 million in the 1980s to around $480 million in the 2000s. Remember when you used to hear, oh, that stadium could go over $1 billion, and you went, oh, now if the district wants the Commanders to move, they're going to have to kick in $1 billion, and that's not going to cover only about half of it. Costs have tripled since the 2010s as facilities have become more opulent. Much of that increase has fallen on team owners, but the median public subsidy for an arena or stadium has grown steadily from $122 million in the 80s to $500 million since 2020. So think about that. Just over 40 years, it has, gone up 4 times, close to that. The 30-year cycle with nearly 3/4 lasting, these are the length of stadiums, 30-year cycles, 3/4 lasting between 20 and 25 years. Since the last sports building boom started around 1995, we could be staring down the barrel of another construction wave. The leases of 44 teams across 4 different leagues will expire over the next decade. That would include the Commanders, whose lease expires in 2027. Chances are that's going to be extended. If the majority of those team owners get new facilities, it could produce one of the greatest stadium construction frenzies in modern history, easily surpassing the Y2K era in sheer dollar terms. Even renovations can have a stunning price tag. The overhaul of Capital One Arena. Now remember, Ted got $500 million to stay. That arena was built in 1997 for $200 million. How about that? $200 million in what seems recent for me, but is obviously not. It's going to have a $550 million infusion from D.C. on top of $200 million that Ted has already spent. So between what Ted has spent on the arena and the other $500 million coming in, that's almost 3 times just for renovation what the cost was to build the place. So think about that. Consider Barclays Center in Brooklyn, whose financials have gone through with a fine-tooth comb. Its developer, Forest City Ratner, predicted the arena would make a profit of about $35 million a year. In the first 3 years, revenue actually beat expectations, but the forecast dramatically underestimated the arena's operating and debt servicing costs, which are about twice as high as expected, driving profits down from $35 million to a maximum of $6 million a year. So, and then this always is the debate: how much money does it bring in? Now, for the Commanders, it's a necessity because they're in a dump right now. They're pumping $75 million into it just to keep it breathing, but that is really good. It's a good analysis of where we are with the stadiums, and it looks like it's going to start up. I think the real changer was Jerry Jones, who built his Texas stadium, whatever it is, AT&T now, for $1.2 billion. That changed the landscape. And then Stan Kroenke came along, and he buys the Rams, and he built the stadium in Los Angeles for like $4 billion. And true, it's got another tenant in the Chargers, but think about the Capital One Arena being built for $200 million and now $4 billion. I know it's a football stadium, but I remember all the fighting that was going on in 2004 when Linda Kropp was trying to prevent Nats Park from being built for $400 million. So it's just crazy what the numbers are, and we're going to see stadiums being built. And who knows, is a $10 billion stadium in reach? Probably so. It could get to that high. It's really an interesting look at where we are in the stadium business, and we don't know where this new one is going to be for the Commanders. And you heard Josh Harris say during the combine that they were very, very interested in what happened with Ted Leonsis. Well, now that Ted is staying, it would seem to lessen his leverage. And does that increase the possibility that they stay in Maryland? Maybe build the stadium closer to the Morgan Boulevard Metro. But, based on what we saw unfold with Virginia, it's unlikely they'll be able to get their act together. And nobody that I know wants it built in Virginia. I certainly don't. So if we have to live with them staying in Maryland, that's just the way it's going to be. Coming up, Andrew Luck, speaking rarely since he walked away from football, shocked everybody, leaving at the age of 29. And years, which probably don't even end now, years and years of speculation that he might come back. He puts that to bed, but the intriguing thought is, what if he changes his mind? We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Tony's coming up at 11 o'clock. I'm sure he'll have much more on the Masters. The draft is a week from Thursday. Jaden Daniels is in Ashburn today. They're supposed to have Drake May in tomorrow or the next day, and J.J. McCarthy before the end of the week. And it seems certain that they will take one of them at number 2. We will have quarterbacks for sure going 1 and 2 with Caleb Williams expected to go to the Chicago Bears. So we got deja vu all over again, only this time the Commanders, then the Redskins, who traded up in 2012 to get RG3, didn't have to trade up this year. They earned that number 2 pick on their own by winning 4 games last year. And what do we know? What do we hear in 2012? Well, whoever takes those 2 quarterbacks, Andrew Luck and RG3, they're going to be set for the next decade plus. These are generational talents. Some even said, doesn't matter, flip a coin. You're going to be set with either one. And as we look back 12 years later, here's how it played out. Andrew Luck was a success. Really was, especially initially. He had a team that was supposed to be rebuilding, got him in the playoffs, and was emerging as a Hall of Fame talent. RG3, as a rookie, was also looking like a Hall of Fame talent and then fell off a cliff his second year. The numbers for the 2 of them, these 2 guys who were supposed to be generational quarterbacks who would be now in their 30s, having their teams in contention to win Super Bowls every year, they hoped, long gone from the league. The last time that Andrew Luck played was in the 2018 season. He showed up for training camp in 2019, had a calf injury, and then as the Colts were playing their last preseason game, an Adam Schefter tweet made its way through the stands that said Andrew Luck was going to retire after the game. And the Indianapolis fans booed him. He was in a T-shirt, didn't play that night. They booed him as he left the field. He gave his body to that team, and they just didn't protect him very well. He missed an entire season with a shoulder injury, 2017, but came back in 2018 and had a terrific year. He was 10-6, 39 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, 4,500 yards. He was the comeback player of the year for a good team, and then shocked everybody in 2019 and walked away. And RG3, well, we know what happened after 2012. Between the 2 of them, they made less than 125 starts. Luck made 86 starts. He was 53-33. RG3 made 42 starts. The career numbers for Luck are very good. 53-33, 61% completion percentage, 171 touchdown passes, 83 interceptions. If you stretch those out, those are Hall of Fame numbers. But the reality is he didn't play much. He missed, again, as I said, all of 17 with a shoulder injury, played only 7 games in 2015. So he played only 5.5 years in the NFL, on the playing field for 5.5 years, made 4 Pro Bowls, and 3 times was All-Pro. And it was kind of like Barry Sanders, even more so, though, because he played a position which is so hard to fill. And, you know, you heard 2-3 years out, oh, if he changes his mind, teams will do anything to get him. The Colts will make sure that they bring him back. But he has never looked back. And he did an interview, not a broadcast interview or not an interview with reporters, but he did talk to Seth Wickersham, who was a great investigative reporter with ESPN, in December of 2022. So it's like a year and a half ago. And he'd been out at that point. He'd been out for almost 3 years, or over 3 years, as a matter of fact. Retired in 2019, so hadn't played in 2019, 2020, 2021, and the 2022 season was coming to an end. And, the question was why, which he never answered. He never really gave a reason why he left. He just said, he had a calf injury and it was time for him to go. And he revealed some things to Wickersham in 2022. He says, to play quarterback, you're not allowed to worry about anything except the task at hand. And that seeps into other areas of life. It's not the healthiest way to live. And he said that his obsession to be an elite quarterback ultimately hurt several relationships in his life. He felt pressured to change his entire personality to meet the expectations of the locker room. That wasn't him. And he said he was suffering from an identity crisis. It wasn't just the injuries, because he'd recovered from the shoulder injury. He had a calf injury, which is, painful and can take a long while to recover from, but that wasn't really the reason he walked away. He said that he identified himself as a quarterback, and he was more than that. And he said he didn't even realize until he left the game that was really a big part of the problem. And he said he had proved he could play at a high level. He had received praise and criticism enough to know that those things didn't matter that much. But to preserve his own physical health and his mental health, he decided to retire. And aside from that interview, we really haven't heard from him. Well, last week, at the end of the week, Friday, he showed up for a fundraiser organized by Chuck Pagano in Indianapolis. And Luck, of course, played for Pagano when he was coaching the Colts. And he agreed to do a news conference with reporters, with football so far in the rearview mirror. Said there was never a point where he thought he might come back, that he never considered that. But this is the state of the quarterbacking game in the NFL. Andrew Luck doesn't turn 35 until September. I know he's been out of the game for 5 years. If you see him, he looks very skinny. He doesn't look like an NFL quarterback anymore. But I'm telling you, if he said, yeah, I was throwing the ball around with some guys and got the itch to play again, teams would move heaven and earth to get him. That he would still have that 5 years out of the game. And at 35, where we just saw Tom Brady play until he was 45 and now is open to the possibility of playing again next season, you better believe that people would flip out at the possibility of him playing again. Doesn't sound like that's going to happen. But he is kind of scratching a football itch. He's going to grad school at Stanford. He's got 2 young daughters, and he is, dipping his toe into the football waters, as he explained Friday.
Probably lowercase coaching, not like capital C coaching. I volunteered two days a week at Palo Alto High School this year and made as many games as I could. And we've had some off-season meetings and stuff. And I think really at the heart of it, Zach, is I think part of me realized at some point in my life that I needed to reintegrate football in a way enough because I loved the game still, and I enjoyed it, and I wanted. Couple years after retiring, I'm not sure there was an epiphany, but I certainly knew I wanted to go back. And when going back to grad school, I wanted to have a different academic experience, but I realized I think I knew enough that I was interested in sports and high school sports to know that education felt like a master's in education felt relevant to that, and I just had fun coaching high school football. Football gave me a lot. Most importantly, again, the relationships and the experiences with people that I loved, like Chuck. I think part of me feels, and I don't mean this in a cheesy way, but part of me feels like, it's my turn to give back into this game, and this is what feels right at this moment for us, and works with family and life and me, et cetera.
Doesn't sound like he's going to expand that out. Is he going to coach college? Maybe not. But right now he's also operating as kind of a house husband. His wife produces television, Olympic events. So she's gone a lot, and he's taking care of the kids and coaching a little high school football, taking graduate courses, which I imagine he can do mostly online. And that's where his life is right now. There are some who have looked back on his experience in Indianapolis and say, well, yeah, he got beat up. They didn't understand that they needed to protect him, that he got a raw deal there. Had he gone to an organization that took better care of him, maybe he'd still be playing. Doesn't sound like that, and has absolutely no bitterness for his time in Indianapolis, and actually feels like he was lucky to play there.
I got to come to a place that had really good football for a long time, and what Peyton and the crew, the bar they set was amazing. I certainly wanted to continue it, and I was just talking to Adam back there. It's like I walked into a locker room with Adam Vinatieri, Reggie Wayne, Dwight Freeney, Robert Mathis as the 4 leaders. That's a dream. I loved football growing up. I watched those guys. I always tell Adam I was a 7-year-old and went to Amsterdam and watched them kick field goals for the NFL Europe in the old Olympic Stadium. And I watched in middle school. I watched Adam kick field goals in the Super Bowl in Houston, Texas. So a lot of good memories. And again, they generally come up when I'm on the phone with T.Y. or talking to Anthony or get to hang out with Jack Doyle. Jack and I were hanging out earlier today. And after coaching a year of high school football, I realized I really don't know how to teach blocking or tackling or or anything that is involves some physicality games. So Jack, can you come over and teach me how to block? So we had a good blocking session. I'm thinking about that, stewing over it right now.
This is about coming out. Like, did actually he's made an appearance in Indianapolis talking to reporters, which he really hasn't done since he retired. And he makes it pretty clear here. He doesn't hate the limelight, but doesn't seek it out in any way. This is explaining that as to how he views attention at this stage of his life.
I think about this often, where we live in a world where it's very easy to create your own visibility in a sense, and that's just never been me. I don't think that's my personality. So, and I'm okay with that. And I certainly am not searching, for attention in that way. And I also know, like when coming back, I'm happy to do this. I'm happy to talk to you. This is part of what sort of life as a former quarterback in this city is, and for that, that's great.
Yeah, so there really wasn't any arm twisting to get him to do this news conference. He did it, and he showed up as a favor to Chuck Pagano. Some guys, and this has happened, I was reading about, was it Sterling Sharp? Yeah, that he had been an analyst with ESPN, was a rising star, more so than Shannon, and he had a prickly personality. I remember dealing with him at ESPN. And there was, at one point, he was being talked about for Monday Night Football, and that didn't happen. And eventually, his broadcast contracts ran out, and he says now that he doesn't watch any football whatsoever, has absolutely no interest in the game. That's not Andrew Luck. As you say, he's coaching. But in terms of the NFL, and I guess this would address the idea of if he had the itch to play and watching football, because you know that Tom Brady's been sitting back and watching a year of football on the couch and thinking, really? This is the game? I could walk into 90% of the teams and perform better than this guy. Luck has never really looked at it that way, and this is how he describes his days now as an ex-football player.
Oh, I love watching football. It's hard to sit down in front of a TV for 3.5 hours and watch games straight when you got a 4-year-old and a 20-month-old. I don't know how you guys do it out there, but I love it. And we live really close to Stanford's campus, and going back to live games and college games and coaching some high school games. And I made it down to a half of a Niners game, this past year. It's fun. It's a great game. I certainly do watch it differently. Part of me watches again like a fan, like a middle school or high school boy who's watching Christian McCaffrey or Jonathan Taylor. Like, I'm a fan, and you get to watch that and hoot and holler, and yeah, it's a great game.
He's a fan, but unlike the rest of us, he could probably walk onto the field and play with them at a high level right now, at a level that most teams would like to have. 5 years is a long time to be gone from the game, but just looking at the age now and the way the position is played, if he did want to come back, there would be a possibility to do that. The last thing is, what do you do with the rest of your life? This isn't something that stars usually face. Like, stars play, in the case of Brady and others, you play as long as you possibly can until they tell you, or they didn't even tell Brady to get out. In most cases, they tell you to get out. He's out at 29. He's got teams who love to have him, but he's got to figure out what he's going to do with the rest of his life. And it is something that he said he wrestled with, and it did not go as completely smoothly as he thought it would.
I was a stay-at-home dad for a while, full-time. It was odd. I mean, yeah, no, and this game gives you, again, as cheesy it is, it gives you purpose. It gives you structure. You're on a team. I think you find some, it scratches some deep itches of relationship and community and purpose and hard work and gratifying. But yeah, it was second act, third act, fourth act. I hope, I know certainly I hope I continue to evolve and find ways, to get the most out of life and to give back into this thing. And certainly having young daughters is, the biggest driver of how life looks in a family. But yeah, we've got a long, we retired too early, and we certainly, we can't be retired.
Yeah, this is one of the oddest ones in the history of sports. This isn't really like Jim Brown, who retired after 9 years in the NFL. 9 years playing running back, that's a relatively long period of time. He had won a championship. They didn't have Super Bowls then, but he was the MVP of the league, I think 8 of the 9, or won several MVPs, but led the league in rushing, I guess, 8 of the 9 years that he played. And he walked away, and at that time, money was a big factor because he could make more money making movies than he did in the NFL. So there was a difference there. Barry Sanders, after 10 years, didn't win a championship, but had put his name up there with the greats of the game who ever played, and he was walking away as a surefire Hall of Famer. It's strange, and there were people, obviously, who wanted him to keep playing, and he could have kept playing at a high level and didn't. This is the case of a guy who I think, and maybe Barry Sanders had this as well, even though it seems to be that great, you have to love what you do. I'm not sure he really loved football. I think in the end, when you analyze this, he liked playing football, and he liked it well enough to keep playing to the level that he did in college and in the pros, but he didn't love it enough to stick with it when other things were entering his life, where he talked about the identity crisis and the tunnel vision of being a quarterback. He had other interests and other things, and stepping back and saying, okay, I'm not going to go to the Hall of Fame. I'm not going to win a Super Bowl. I'm not going to be up there with the greats of the game because I didn't play long enough, 5.5 seasons. But I proved to myself I could do it at a high level. I did it at a high level. They didn't want me to go. It's not like RG3 now with his nose pressed up against the glass trying to get back in. Nah, he left it and walked away. And I think if you look at great players who have left too soon, and there aren't many of them, there aren't many that leave at the top of their game at his level, and he did. It's one of the more curious retirements in the history of sports, and he seems to be completely at peace with it. There never was a time where you heard something like, "Ooh, Andrew Luck's got an itch again. He's working out. He doesn't want anybody to see him, but if he gets to a certain level, he may come." No, he left. He left in August of 2019. And here we are in April of 2024, and he has apparently no regrets and is enjoying being a dad, a grad student, a part-time football coach, and now seems to be very comfortable being a former quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. No ill will there whatsoever. Really crazy. Speaking of crazy, missed free throws for chicken. Seems like an innocent move, but in this day and age of legalized sports gambling, could be a serious thing. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Tony's up at 11 on this beautiful Monday here in Washington, D.C., as we look out our windows here on Jennifer Street in beautiful northwest Washington, D.C., rolling towards the draft, which takes place a week from Thursday. If you missed my conversation with Mel Kiper, I'm going to play a couple of parts of that probably next week, but it was really nice to catch up with him, and he is pretty steadfast about Jaden Daniels going number 2 to Washington. He's in Ashburn today. They're supposed to talk to Drake May there this week, and also J.J. McCarthy, but we've got another 10 days, right? 10 days before we find out what's going to happen and whether that's going to change the fortunes of the franchise. Going to go a long way for sure, and hopefully they get the right guy. And all indications right now, it's going to be Jaden Daniels. So yesterday, final day of the regular season in the NBA. Teams these days, some of them are disinterested in the regular season altogether. But an end of season game where playoff positions are set, there's just not much effort that goes on. So last night, or I guess yesterday afternoon, the Rockets were playing the Clippers in Los Angeles, and the Rockets didn't have any trouble winning the game. They won 116 to 105, so they won by 11 points. But late in the fourth quarter, Boban Marjanovic was at the free throw line, and he's I was like 7'4". He's done some commercials. He's a funny guy. He's been around a long time. He's 35 years old. Played for the Clippers at one point in his career. So at the free throw line, and the Clippers have this promotion. If an opposing player misses 2 free throws in a row, fans are treated to free chicken. A lot of people have this. So he's at the line. He points to himself before attempting the second free throw, clanks it off the rim. Everybody goes crazy, and they get free chicken in Los Angeles. Seems like a harmless thing in a basically meaningless game that was out of control at that point, and the Rockets wound up winning by 11. Here's my question, though. In this day and age where leagues are in bed with gambling and point spreads are a big part of gambling, how can you have this? This can't fly. When you didn't have gambling, it was an innocent thing. Yeah, people did bet on the games, but now you're legalizing gambling. You're advertising to your fan base that you should participate in whatever thing you're hooked to, or DraftKings, whatever. That you encourage your fans to vote, and then you have a player intentionally missing a free throw, which could play into the point spread. This is the slippery slope that everybody had warned about, and it's here. And what seemed like a funny thing, okay, good old Boban, 7'4" Boban, has a good sense of humor about himself, intentionally missing a free throw. Yeah, sure, free throws are clanked all the time. But this is something that I think they have to be very concerned about. I think there has to be real worry about this, I would think. I mean, that's just me. But, yeah, Boban missed the free throw, and people got the free chicken. And it's, it's something that I think that they do have to be concerned about. I think they do. I think that's something that the league has to look into. And I just saw something, by the way, that Shohei Ohtani's investigation is supposed to wrap up fairly quickly. They pinned everything on the interpreter, everything. And they said, oh, yeah, he was a victim of theft. And I have a hard time getting my head around this when you're talking about the amount of money that was bet, $180 million, and they lost $40 million, and $16 million was stolen, that it's, yep, knew nothing about it, all on the interpreter, and let's move on. Okay. There's going to be trouble there. This was in the paper last week. It's about bathrooms at the airport, and BWI Airport has gotten awards for the cleanest restrooms in America. And this is a thing. And this story that was written by Andrea Sachs, headline, "The Next Frontier of Airport Innovations is the Bathroom." And if you've ever gone to the bathroom in the airport, you know you'd like it to be clean, right? I mean, you even feel like, ooh, I don't know if I want to put my bag down on the floor here. So having a clean bathroom is quite reassuring in an airport. And so this is a quote from Ty Osbo, is the principal architect at Gensler, the international architecture and design firm whose client lists include Pittsburgh International and JFK International in New York. The intent was to make the restroom experience feel like a 5-star hotel. How about that? BWI spokesman Jonathan Dean says that according to passenger surveys, travelers rank plentiful and clean restrooms as essential to a positive airport experience, along with smooth security checkpoints and an intuitive airport layout. Terry Ruckert, principal architect and senior vice president at ACOM, which works with Boston Logan International and BWI, has heard similar feedback from travelers. It's amazing how restrooms are one of the most important elements that influence a passenger's perception of an airport. Well, of course. Absolutely. What's the first thing you have to do before you go out and claim your baggage? You got to go to the bathroom, and you'd like it to be clean, right? Absolutely. The fast food places, they're pretty much the same in airports. They all have McDonald's. They all have Starbucks. Okay, some are better than others, but it's the bathroom that makes the difference. Now, the coronavirus accelerated the evolution of manual fixtures to automatic. In most airports, the slightest motion activates the toilets, sinks, soap dispensers, and hand-drying machines, the one holdover paper towels. We have those automatic flushes here at work. That's not necessary for airports. As the technology for hand drying has advanced, I think we see demand for paper towels lowering, Ruckert said. But every time we turn around, we hear people like paper towels. Yes, you absolutely want paper towels in the bathroom, because the hand blowers, it takes a long time. You want in a bathroom. I absolutely, if you're going for the 5-star effect, give me paper towels. Absolutely. Because a lot of times you wind up wiping your hands on your pants, right? Plus, they say that the hand dryers can stir up germs that have settled on the floor. You don't want that if you're going to go for cleanliness. Airports are lengthening and widening stall doors so passengers can no longer see the feet or glimpse at individuals through the cracks. Well, how do you know if the restroom is occupied unless you look under there and you see a pair of feet? My grandfather was a germaphobe, and we were in a restaurant once, and he had to go to the bathroom and before we left, and it was taking a long time. So my mother said, well, why don't you check in the bathroom and see if everything's okay? And so I go in, I don't see him at the urinals, and I look under the stalls, and I don't see any feet. Well, he was such a germaphobe that he had climbed up on the seat to do his business, standing on it. Yeah. So my grandfather's been gone for a long time, probably 30 years now. I guess he would welcome the idea of a 5-star cleanly bathroom. Saw this yesterday about going to Disneyland or Disney World. The last time I was there, my kids were really young, so we're going back 26, 27 years, something like that. And my parents took us. It was nice. We took the whole family went. It was really good for the kids. But they're talking about the high end and people can actually, how much they can actually spend at Disney World. Those seeking lifestyles of the rich and famous can be ushered through lines by a dedicated tour guide for as much as $900 an hour, watch fireworks from a private boat for $450, or spend 3 hours sampling food and wine in the kitchen of a fine dining restaurant for $635 a person. Not pricey enough? There's always the $18,000 private dinner experience. See, I thought like Disney World, Disneyland, the place you take the kids and you have the character breakfast with the sticky stuff all over the place and Winnie the Pooh, and you take them on the rides and you get sweaty and all. No, this is something they're advertising. I don't know who does this. This wouldn't be my idea of a dream vacation, but the story points out that you can really go whole hog at Disney World. Some fans complain that a Disney vacation has become so costly it's out of reach for the middle class, even without the luxury upgrades. Between tickets, hotel, food, and souvenirs, even a penny-pinching trip can set a family of 4 back more than $3,000. Among the other things they advertise, $185 photo package. Now with camera phones, why the hell would you pay for that? That seems like a complete waste. Cutting lines, $900 an hour seems pricey, but I guess, money's no object. Then there's the souvenirs. Most people buy like a pair of Mickey Mouse ears or a popcorn bucket. Nope. There's something that's called Savvy's Workshop, where Star Wars loving fans can custom build their own lightsaber. Costs about $250 at Hollywood Studios and $220 at Disneyland in Florida. $220 souvenir. Here's where you go really high end. In California, the 2-bedroom Mickey Mouse suite at Disneyland is going for about $5,000 in June, and a 2-bedroom Mount Whitney suite at the Grand Californian is listed at $7,984 a night. $8,000 a night for a suite. Or, if you really want to go for it, a $95,000 top floor hotel buyout. The Four Seasons in Orlando near the theme parks allows guests to rent out its 16th floor, which includes balconies with a view of fireworks at Epcot and Magic Kingdom. Although the hotel isn't operated by Disney, advisors say it's a good fit for luxury travelers who are used to a 5-star experience. According to the resort, the cost for the top floor is $95,000 a night plus tax. On a smaller but still extremely expensive scale, prices for the presidential suite start at $19,000 a night and $22,000 a night for the royal suite. Wow. And then there's the $500,000 honeymoon, and it's 5 weeks. That's a long honeymoon. 5-week honeymoon. Includes transportation to a special event in a carriage, a custom gown, private dining as the characters from Beauty and the Beast dance, a special fireworks viewing, VIP tours every other day during the 5-week stretch, and you stay at 4 different hotels. A client managed to spend the same amount of money at a much shorter stretch, 4 days, with a family of 37. They bought out the top floor of the Four Seasons to celebrate an 80th birthday party. The family had private meals delivered to their suites so relatives could come and go. The group did daily VIP tours using 4 guides. They flew in and out on a private plane just to see the resort. So what it's telling you is if you're kvetching about how much it costs to take the family of 4 to Disney World or Disneyland, you can go all out. And if here it is, they're saying even low end, it's $3,000, which doesn't seem unreasonable for a week for a family of four to me anyway, but that may be budget busting for some. But if you want to go all out, you can spend $500,000 for, well, this would be a 5-week stay, but you could also do it in 4 days if you buy out the thing. And man, who'd have thought? I just thought you just kind of go in the parades. It's a small world after all. You go on some of the rides, you have a good time, you take some pictures, and you got memories of a lifetime. Nah, it's much more than that. So there's that. All right, WNBA draft tonight. Doesn't look like the Mystics are going to be, making anybody real excited. Angel Reese is not supposed to be somebody they're going to take there. They're expected to take a guard, and Caitlin Clark is going to chew up everything as she goes number 1 to Indiana. But we'll talk about that and more tomorrow. Tony is coming up next, and I will see you back here tomorrow at 9 a.m.